And then you look at the college guys, everybody's talking about Shadur, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward. Nobody's talking about Will Howard.
Nope.
Except for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't talk about Will Howard all year. I didn't talk about Will Howard last year when he was the Big 12 Player of the Year at Kansas State and went to overtime against this Texas team as a Kansas State Wildcat. And what he has done, and with these eyes, what I've seen him do, how he has led, how he's, and he hasn't even ran that much this year in this Chip Kelly offense because they don't need it because all the weapons they have on the outside. Kansas State, he was running all over the place. 6'3", 240. 6'3", 240. And he obviously has weapons. That's a bucket. I mean, he just dropped it right into a bucket. He's able to read defenses, make the right. That's a ball. That's an NFL throw right there. And also something we got to see that not everybody else gets to see. I saw this guy coming out of the tunnel. We're talking about skipping. We're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Moxie.
Some
swag.
Yeah. We're talking about a little bit of.
Gumpy.
We're talking a little.
He's got some gut sacks.
Had a shiesty on whenever he was playing against Tennessee. Obviously, no sleeves. It's like, I like this guy. I like him a lot. One half of the hammer,
Dahn.
Cowboys AP Tone. You said you did a mock draft. You picked him up in the 4th round. They're talking about this quarterback draft class not being great, and then they're not mentioning this guy's name. Doesn't make sense to me, but you did your mock draft, got him in the 4th round. I think Mel Kiper's projecting him to be in the 4th round. I am baffled by that, especially with what he's been doing on the biggest stages that you can get in college ball, in the history of college ball, throughout these 12-team playoffs.
Yeah, personally, I drafted him today in the 4th round for the Pittsburgh Steelers on PFF's mock draft.
Congratulations. I think that's a steal.
Yeah, good draft.
I thought it was a steal, too, but it turns out, judging by the replies, he's a very, very polarizing figure on the internet. It was either, hey, that's a great pick, or this guy's the worst human being of all time. I don't know why Will Howard's so polarizing. Maybe just because he plays for Ohio State. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's the potential to be a great quarterback based off of arm strength, size, height, all those intangibles that you talk about. And he's a leader, like we've talked about. He is when he got the concussion, or not concussion, against Michigan, and was just sprinting up and down the sideline, I said, this guy's got a bit of a pizzazz to him as well.
Yeah, and the concussion against Michigan, potentially why. I mean, that's, you talk about their season and what is the downfall. Well, obviously he has that situation against Oregon. Okay, so hold that against them. Then they lose to Michigan. Okay, hold that against them. How do you respond in the biggest moment? Oh, you choke against Oregon. He choked. The guy couldn't execute in the highest pressure. Has he? Now, in these different situations, I think Will Howard deserves a lot more respect. Let's go to the Talks the Table at Boston Connor and at Ty Schmidt. Great to see you boys. You boys have seen him live. And this is just like
He's
when
huge.
you see Drake May.
Yeah.
You see Drake May, and it's like, wow, that baby face, you don't think, especially with how he moves, you don't think how big he is. Then we run into him in a hotel during college game day whenever we had a North Carolina game, and I'm looking like this at this guy. I'm like, I did not know it was built like this. Yeah. And then Will Howard, same exact. I mean, you're looking up at Will Howard. He's a massive, strapping lad. It's a wild time, but he's got his team in the national championship. Riley Leonard hasn't been talked about as a guy, and I think it's strictly because of his arm and how he throws and everything like that. He's not the only quarterback in the history of college that hasn't had the greatest arm coming out. It's just like, feels like a couple guys haven't been talked about. Feels like the draft class as a whole has been talked about as being shite, which I don't think is fair, because who knows who's going to be good. Who knows who's going to be terrible?
Yeah.
I mean, there's top 5 picks at quarterback position who stink. And then there's guys 199. It's like, how do you know who's good? Well, the way they throw it, it's like, the only thing that matters is in here, brother. This is the only thing that matters at that position. Have to be able to make throws. Have to be able to do it. But how's the work ethic? How's the leadership? How's the football love? And then how can you dissect defenses and how can you show up in the biggest moments? I think Riley Leonard and Will Howard at this point have showed up in the biggest of moments thus far. Obviously another opportunity on Monday night in the national championship.
Yeah, and they can both move, which is awesome. I feel like you have to have that going into the NFL now, especially at the quarterback position. But when you talk about the biggest moments, like also some of the biggest teams, like Tennessee, the big takeaway when we watched them all year was like their defense flies around. They play hard and they hit. Yeah, and they dominated Tennessee, and granted at home in the cold, whatever.
I mean, that's a strike right there. Yeah, I mean, that is a strike right there.
Absolute seed, and there's some of those all over the place. And look who he's playing against, Oregon. Oh, okay, the best team all season, one of the best offenses and defenses that they probably went against all year, and he's leading that team against the best offense and defense. So I assume he has a say day and getting the team ready as far as pregame, getting the boys hyped up. And then, of course, the last game. Like, Texas was one of the bigger, best teams that we all saw.
Very expensive. A lot of pros.
A lot of pros on that team. A lot of money gone into that team. You know, you talk about, the teams that benefited from everyone talking about Ohio State spending $20 million. Texas was one of those teams because they probably spent upwards, if not more than $20 million to get the guys to retain.
Everybody that's left, they spent at least $20 million.
Exactly.
And that was probably goes back one round.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just didn't know that everybody was going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And not everybody is able to do that. The teams that are, though, certainly going to have quite an advantage.
No doubt.
You're seeing them around right now. April 8th ruling, we'll see how that goes. Joining us here is a man who's an absolute legend, not only on these parts, but the entire football landscape.
For sure.
36 years in football, 18 in college, 18 in the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Pagano.
Yeah, Coach.
Hey, Coach, you just heard us break down Will Howard. I think you've been watching the games alongside of us for these college football playoffs. And then you're watching those highlights. I see you saying, that looks like that looks like a. Why do you think he's not being chatted about? And what do you think it takes for a college quarterback to be great in the NFL?
Well, when you were talking about him this morning, I went and pulled up on my iPad. You said, hey, check him out. So I went and watched that Oregon game. Did he miss a pass? What was his completion percentage?
No, he was great.
High.
I mean, because all those throws are spot on. They're all runner's balls. They're not behind.
Jeez,
okay?
Is this okay? It's 4 degrees out here. There's a lot of snow.
yeah.
Hey.
More snow than we could have fathomed
There is a
here.
lot of snow.
Calling
I
you
thought it was flying into Sarajevo. It looked
Good
like
call.
the front,
There is nothing
or
out
Green
there.
Bay, whatever.
Or Minnesota, any of the cold-ass towns.
Sarajevo's
Indianapolis is not normally a snow place because it's so windy. So normally it's the crop snow, it's thin snow, it's snowball
Shite.
snow.
Wintry
It's
mix.
Yeah, it's normally quick in, quick out. You normally are able to see just grass. It's normally frozen,
Yeah.
but you don't normally see. Snow's been sticking around this year and cold as shit.
Shite.
So I hope you're able to battle through today with your voice.
No, we're good. We're
Okay.
good. So so this looks like another Big Ben, right? So if there's still going to be a handful of offensive systems like Goff in Detroit right now with Ben Johnson, right? That want a pocket passer, want a big, tall. Like, is this guy, when you stood next to him,
Yes,
does he
big.
look like
Yes.
like Andrew,
Yes.
big,
Yes.
right? Strong,
Yeah.
physical.
240.
So he's got all the metrics. It looks like he can process and he can read a defense because he knows where to go with the ball. He throws a pretty ball. He's a good enough athlete to get out of
And
trouble.
watch this. Watch him celebrate with the boys.
And to me, that's the biggest thing. Like, so we've made a ton of mistakes on quarterbacks over the year, everybody, right? But the one thing you don't want to make a mistake on is the football IQ, the football character. So who's the guy that steps in a huddle where, like, all of his teammates, like, you can tell, you can go to a game, you can go to a practice, and you can just watch the body language and you can watch his teammates around him, how they respond to him.
Isn't it like, is he a
And they-
guy?
He's got it.
Is he a guy?
So everybody says it. So you go to those practices, you go to those games, and you can see it, like the way his teammates respond and the way they rally around him and how he, celebrates with his teammate. Like, you can see a guy like, guys, like, they score a touchdown, like nobody's around him, or he goes by him, like, that guy's a
Nobody
dick.
went to his birthday
Nobody
party.
nobody.
Wow.
So it looks like he has it.
Yeah, I think so. And as he was doing that celebration, he literally just was staring through my soul because I do believe I picked against them in that particular game. No.
You picked Ohio
I picked
State.
one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically he was looking over at us, though, and it's like he has a handshake with all his teammates, all of them. He's brand new, and he's played so much football. He has played 5 years now of football at it's a lot of plays. So people talk like, why was Bo Nix able to succeed so much? It's like he played a lot of football.
60 starts.
A lot of football. Accurate, too. He was able to complete a lot of passes.
Yeah.
You just talked about that. C.J. Stroud. Why was C.J. Stroud played a lot of football? Jaden Daniels, a lot of football. Like, this dude has played a lot of college ball. I'm not saying that's going to be an abnormal thing going forward because I think a lot more people are sticking around because NIL money's more than rookie year money, even though second year money, third year money, fourth year money, second contract money are in a stratosphere that no NIL will ever be able to get to. So you're kind of delaying your path to that, but you're certainly getting paid a lot more money than you probably would your rookie season as a salary. So I think it's going to keep guys in playing more football, but it's like, I think this guy's special right here. I think this dude is a guy. I think he's a guy. And the fact that I think the draft process, because they're putting him in the fourth round, I think he's going to have to go through the combine. He's going to have to grind it out. Like, he's going to have to do very well. That's a big day for him. I think his pro day is going to have to be a big day. I think his interviews are going to have to go very well. You know, some quarterbacks at this stage, especially with the amount of success that he has had, certainly with what his team is having now, even though Riley Leonard on the other side is like, I play a lot of football too.
Yeah.
What are we? I'm elite. My guys love me.
Duke.
What I've been able to,
right?
yeah, Duke and Notre Dame. It's like they're thinking the same exact thing. I think this year, this draft process, we're going to have to see these guys prove themselves. And it's the first time we've seen that in a long time at the quarterback position, Ty.
Well, and we'll see. I mean, like, everything obviously changes. If he goes to the combine and runs like a 4.7 or like a 4.65, you know, then I feel like that's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, maybe he's much more athletic than we thought he is. But
you think because the Chip Kelly offense, he hasn't been moving much.
I think
so. They say big, mayonnaise.
Exactly.
This guy's moving.
Exactly.
At the speed of nothing.
We've talked about it a little bit. Like, he definitely gets dinged for being at Ohio State and for them having as much talent as they had. But, like, look at when he was at Kansas State. Like, there was a couple guys that went to the NFL, but he wasn't playing with, you know, the type of roster he is now. And you still have to, like, Ohio, it's not like, I mean, granted, Ohio State brought him in and he was going to be the starter, but you still have to earn that. And when you're playing around a bunch of other 5-stars, for him to be like the de facto, like, we've seen him doing these games, like the way he is on the sideline, his energy, and it's not just with the offense, it's with the defense. We saw the way he was, you know, getting in Jack Sawyer's face and pumping him up after the scoop and score for the touchdown. Like, I think that's also very impressive, and that's something that gets discounted a little bit. Like, it is his first year at Ohio State, you know, and there's no guarantee that he would come in and just immediately get his teammates' respect and love and admiration, especially when they had the kind of season that they did where, you know, the sky was falling after Michigan. They lose to they lose the Oregon game. Like, him kind of being level-headed and keeping it and saying, hey, everything's still out in front of us, that's massive. And then for him to come out and play his best football of the season, like, I think no matter what, I think he is a lot better. We personally, after seeing him live in person the last several weeks, it's like, what's going on here? But I think no matter what, he's made himself a lot of money in this playoff.
I think, and well-deserved. And to your point about the sky falling, after that Michigan loss, his teammates all paid a lot of money, all 5 stars, thinking, man, we wasted this year with this guy.
Yeah.
You could turn on him.
Legit.
But instead they didn't. And obviously could have turned on Ryan Day. They didn't. They kind of stuck together and rallied whenever the outside certainly lost a lot of hope in what was possible for them. I love this dude. And Riley, too. Like, after that Northern Illinois game, he obviously wrote about it in the Players Tribune, about having to get a cop, take him home, and where he was. He went late in the indoor facility because of how depressed he was, felt like he let down Notre Dame, and how they've responded and followed behind him. I like the fact that these two quarterbacks in the position that they're in, that they're going to have to go prove it, not only on Monday night, but going into the NFL. I think you have something about the draft process?
Yeah, like those two, you talked about proving it. Those two are both going to the Senior Bowl, so that we'll see both of them there at the Senior Bowl. We're also going to see Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, and Jalen Milroe all at the Senior Bowl, so it's like one of those years where these guys do have to go out and prove themselves. So we're not going to see these guys sitting out not throwing at things. We're going to see them a lot over the next few months before the draft,
which will kind of inevitably help them. Like, they're not going to go to a terrible situation. Like, if these guys potentially, yeah. Like,
there's a chance during this draft process, and I'm picking Will Howard, but let's say it's somebody else. Somebody in the interviews.
Yeah, sure.
There's going to be some coach that's like, hey, are we going to let somebody else feel the same way we feel about this person? And at the quarterback position, that's when you see movement to potentially get drafted. But to your point, if it stays how it stays right now, it's like you potentially get drafted second, third round to a good team.
Yeah, 20, even end of the first round. Like, if we're talking about the Steelers as a team looking for a quarterback, like, that'd be a great situation to go to. And you can say whatever you want about the Steelers, but, like, they have a great defense, and that would be a good football town to end up in, no matter what you want to say about the Steelers, Tone. But still, any of those teams that might be QB needy, you know, and I wouldn't throw the Jets in there just because of all the things that have happened with the Jets and kind of what it's surrounding.
And we don't know what's happening with Aaron yet.
And we don't know what's happening with Aaron yet. But, like, you talk about a team with, you know, a good defense, a great running back, a great wide receiver. Like, there are situations out there where if you're a quarterback like one of these guys who isn't regarded as one of the top 5 picks, top 10 picks in the draft, that you could end up in a great situation and set up to succeed in the NFL.
You've been a part of the draft process a lot more than I have on the inside. Is there a chance somebody, like, really impresses and they move up, especially at the quarterback position? That's the most important position in the NFL. A team will certainly use a first rounder on a quarterback that they hope and think will be something special. How much movement can happen during that draft process for a guy like Will or Riley or any of these guys that aren't being Jalen Milroe even?
Yeah.
What is the draft process like and how much can people move?
I think a bunch happen, especially after, you go through, all-star games, you go through the combine, and then you start the interview process, and then you have 30-30s. So I think once these guys figure out who these guys are, so I don't know what the knock is on Will Howard. I don't know why he's sitting there as a potential fourth rounder. If there's something off the field, Tone, you mentioned.
He's got that baby face. He looks too young.
No beard.
He's going to get carded if he buys beers for the boys.
Well, we've had some young-looking, people come into these programs and do okay, just because of that. But
Drake.
But yeah, there's because it only takes one, right? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So it only takes one. So, yes, things can change. The kid can come in. He can just totally knock the socks off of everybody in your organization, even on a top 30. Like, okay, wow, this guy. And then as soon as they get to break down and listen to him dissect the film, I'm sure like Sean Payton when he went and did Bo, and he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, okay, this is the next human that I want to work with. He's got, because of this, and you hear about how complex that offense is and just the play calling, and that Bo doesn't do a risk. He memorizes like Andrew.
And he's 35 years old.
Andrew did that.
Yeah.
And these play calls go from this wall to that wall.
Yeah.
And there's like 10,000 on a play sheet. You see these play sheets, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea how they do just that.
I'm on the defensive side of the ball the entire time. I don't know how these quarterbacks do it.
But that, okay, now identify the defense too. Who's the mic? What's the protection going to be? Oh, I have motion too. Okay, bring this guy
Coverage.
over here, and then bring this one, and then snap the ball. Remember the snap count. Oh yeah, what's it on? So I just called this. What are we on? Okay, we're on 2. Okay, good, cool. And then snap the ball, and then all the guys are doing all this, and then figure out, okay, it was cover 2 that they were.
I told the story of Andrew Luck showing up first day, delayed spring because he had to graduate to be a engineer or something like that.
Architect?
Yeah, architectural engineer.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, both.
an engineer and an
Building
architect.
big
There were several degrees, I think.
Yeah, there are all of them happening. So, like, Stanford, real school, so they weren't like, no, you can't do this. Like, just wrap this up and then you can go to OTAs. So he was late to OTAs. It was like a week and a half.
Missed a lot.
Yeah, it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks of OTAs, which is a lot of on-field stuff. But his first day there, he made a check that was at the end of the playbook, and nobody else had it. Like, the offensive line had no fucking idea what he was talking about. Wide receivers had no idea what he was talking about. And this is like his first day in the building. So he's like, check, goes to something, and everybody, like, looks at him. What is that? And then Bruce Arians has to motherfuck him and say, we don't know, we're not there yet, you son of a bitch. Like the whole thing like that. And that was like his introduction to the team. And I think that was when we were all like, oh, okay, like this is the chosen one.
Yeah.
It's 100 level
Yeah.
for everybody but him. He was already on 500.
And
What?
looking up at him.
Big son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Avatar.
And that's what kind of happened last year with Atlanta. Like, you could throw Penix in there, and granted, Penix was considered a first-round pick, but like no one, I think he was plus 2,000 to go to Atlanta at 8 or 9, wherever he went. And like that's a team who fell in love with the guy. Like, they paid Kirk Cousins $100 million guarantee, but they were like, hey, we love this kid, so why would we pass on a quarterback that we love when we know like Kirk Cousins isn't a 10-year, 12-year option?
And nobody outside the building other than Oz the Mentalist knew it was possible.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
To kind of put a wrap on this particular conversation before we bring in the general manager of the North Carolina Tar Heels football team, here's Will Howard talking about nobody talking about him.
You know, I try not to, but it does seep in a little bit. You know, obviously, you know, people say things, and it feels like I just keep getting, nobody really wants to give me any credit, but I love that. Keep it coming, man. I as much motivation as I can get, I'm going to take, and I love people challenging me and challenging this team, because it keeps that chip on our shoulder and keeps that edge. And when we play like that, when we play like, a little pissed off and have a little chip on our shoulder, I think that's good for us.
Okay, so that's Will Howard chit-chatting about loving it and listening to it and hearing it. Everybody hears everything these days. We have found that out.
Yeah.
We have found that out.
Hard not to.
Certainly.
Yeah, whenever we run into somebody that we just so happen to potentially crack a joke about.
Vice versa.